episode 19 of Trapped in My Mind. I'm your host, Seth, and today with me I have my good friend, Kevin.
Hey Seth, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here. Go ahead.
I must say, I'm really impressed by the intro music. Is that,
That's Freed.
Oh, it's, okay, gotcha.
I don't know, oh yeah, you've met Freed. You played soccer with him. So yeah, that's actually, I don't want to get flagged for copyright, but that's actually a song that exists. He took it, chopped it, reversed it.
Nice.
And then, made it his own. So that's a kudos to him.
Yeah, I'm impressed. That's, hey, chill beats to study to. Put it on YouTube, man. It might take off. You never know.
Well, it was supposed to be like a song, like from Beyond the Room, but I think it fit this better.
Yeah, hey, that's perfect. Like I said, the vibe, it's there. That's what you're looking for.
I'm glad it captured your attention. Did you ever realize that you have the same first name as Tame Impala? His name, Kevin Parker?
Yeah, I guess I've seen it on Wikipedia and been like, oh yeah, his name's Kevin too.
Both musicians.
Yeah, nowhere near that echelon of musician, but hey, if that's one thing that we have in common, that's cool, I guess.
Two things.
Two things, yeah. Well, I wouldn't even say my level of musicianship even comes close to what he's able to do. Just do whatever I can do, and it comes out. Let alone be able to not only write something that it's really hard to say because oh man, I'm already stumbling.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I think for one, you're grooving on the bass, right? Your bass is your instrument.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that's the main one. When I'm generally playing around the house, I have an acoustic guitar that I probably spend the most amount of time on, just because there's the instant gratification of being able to pick it up, having it out all times, being able to strum a chord, or there's maybe something apart from a song, a few chords you put together, a progression or you learn something, and you can really just kind of pick up where you leave off, right, at any given time. The bass is out, kind of the same thing, but without it being amplified, having electric bass and playing it without, being able to have the instant gratification that you have with an acoustic instrument, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm following.
Yeah, so it goes either way, but generally I would say the acoustic guitar is kind of if I'm sitting around the house and just have the compulsion, if you will, to pick up an instrument, because that's really kind of what it is, and just strum or noodle a little bit. That's generally what I gravitate toward, I would say.
And how long have you been involved in music, whether it be playing that, singing?
Yeah, so I would probably say I really kind of became enthralled with it probably when I was about 13 or 14. When I kind of ironically, it was kind of the same time as I had some friends who were playing music. They were playing in hardcore bands or kind of the screamo thing. It was right when the that scene was kind of happening.
American Rejects.
No, I would say more and again, it was more my friends more so myself, and as I'm in the band with now, more you think My Chemical Romance, Hawthorne Heights, and
Rage Against the Machine.
No, but not necessarily. More on the emo spectrum, if you will. But that was the first music and scene that I had any kind of exposure to, where people my age were getting on stage and playing music, and kind of more so than the actual genre itself. I still love My Chemical Romance, but just as one small piece of that larger scene, wherever you will. But it was more so the accessibility of it, right? So the fact that people that I knew, very much kind of the same boat as me, were getting up and doing it and playing music and putting stuff on MySpace or whatever like that, and doing your thing, right? And kind of trying to play shows, trying to network with other people who want to do the same thing that you were doing, and so it kind of, that was the beginning of it, really. And I probably, so right around that point in time, while I was say in middle school, it had that thing going that kind of was very short lived. Maybe played 2 or 3 shows, and just after that point in time, throughout high school, I always was like playing kind of like a bedroom player, so I was like playing guitar in my bedroom, basically, maybe like once or twice with like some friends of mine.
Yeah, wait, you were saying in middle school you were in a band though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can if you can you even like log into MySpace or anything like that?
I never had one. So.
Yeah, okay. Or if you, I don't even know if it's possible, but if you log on to MySpace, we had like a page, it was like Rude Awakening, right? And we just had like these like dumbass, like ridiculous names for songs like Spina Bifida or like, and other things that were probably a little bit more vulgar and definitely not appropriate, I want to say here. Very different time. What was socially acceptable at that point in time. And
sure.
Especially for like 13-year-old dumbass kids, you can put on the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so we recorded music, however, poorly, put it out there, and try to play shows. And again, like, there was somewhat of a scene that people were setting up. There were basically places where you could play. There were different venues who would have like nights where you can come and play 30 minutes of yours and stuff. And generally like we knew other people who were doing the same thing, and were networking via MySpace at that point in time. Which was actually it was still like social media at that point in time was a lot different.
Yeah.
Understandably. It was, I don't know, it's hard to really describe, things that like, it was very, it had much more of like a grassroots feel to it, if you will. So yeah, we did that for a while, played a few shows. I personally was absolutely terrible, and a lot of the time I was playing bass at that point in time too, but it turned like way down because our band sucked so bad. But it was funny. We were getting up and we were doing it, and it was an experience, right? But since then, after that, throughout like high school, I would say was again just playing guitar in my room, spending however many hours doing that. Even my first few years of college, I was still very much a betting player, and then kind of the same group of friends. I think it might have been like 7 years ago now. Put together a band. Like, oh yeah, and like, hey, like you should come and play bass for us. And so I've been with those same group of guys since that point in time. Recorded some music, played some shows, but mostly just doing covers now and just having fun playing music. Have had a blast doing it since that point in time as well. Like, I mean, just playing dumbass rock and roll with my friends, which is like, it's been such a big priority in my life, and it seems so like trivial, but just that one thing in your life that you have, and then it's a constant. It's been just like nothing but like a sense of joy for me, and that's really what music has become. Like we're at a point now like where we don't necessarily give a shit about trying to record our own music, or we still write songs here and there, and we'll probably release more music, but it's really just the idea of like, even if you have to play covers to do it, to play shows, have people show up, enjoy what you're playing, that energy exchange. So like you're up on stage and you can tell people are enjoying it, even if there's like 50 people, that's huge. That's all I've ever wanted and ever like care about,
Yeah,
so.
I think that's cool. I always enjoy your guys' Beastie Boy cover.
Yeah. And
one's
the
fun.
band like the Crampton Brothers, you can look on Spotify and
check it out.
Music and everywhere else, and Facebook and whatnot.
Moose Lounge.
Yeah, shout out.
Moose Lounge is a classic.
Yeah.
So
shout out Token Lounge, Milwaukee, Michigan.
Moose Lounge is Garden City, Michigan.
Yeah, well,
they play all over Michigan.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you got started basically because you had friends that were doing music and just kind of way to hang out and create.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd always like really been like really into music. It was like, anybody. And I think that's something that we have in common that we've always connected over, is I know that you've had a really strong emotional connection to music and response to it, and I'm sure you had that from like a young age, right? And so I just was the people I generally gravitated toward throughout my school, especially as I kind of came in my adolescence, were generally people who, if not had the same taste as me or like didn't like the same bands, but also just had like that really strong emotional connection and response to music, right? And that was something that they cared about, and it was something that informed their social life and like the people they hung out with the same as me, and I guess it really just kind of goes from there.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because from what I know, you also are very much moved by like English and words and writing.
For sure.
Because wasn't that a pretty good passion of yours or interest in yours? Was writing in the English language or just communication?
Yeah. I mean, I have a degree in English literature. So I mean, it's something that, which is like, useless. I work in advertising now, so I mean, I guess I'm at a point to where I'm now finally using my degree, but. Yeah, for sure. Like language and language in general, and a lot of my, earliest and I would say that some of the artists that I responded to the most strongly as a young person generally was like through like lyricism.
Yeah.
So like storytelling in a songwriting form. Excuse me. You can edit that out, but
I don't know.
No, oh wow.
I can, but
yeah. Yeah, so like, I mean, just like, it's so like cliche to say, but like Bob Dylan, you know what I mean, or somebody along those lines, or, a big thread was like, a big one for me was always like classic country music and like country, going back to like, artists like Willie Nelson, Earl Haggard, Waylon Jennings, and then, becoming aware of like, giant people songwriters like Townes Van Zandt, even like Shel Silverstein, and then it kind of just goes from there, right? And singer-songwriter music, having a real interest I have from like a young age, and the way I'm thinking of like words and music and craft, and obviously, and then as I kind of got older, I kind of went through like a big phase of like really being into like Jimi Hendrix and like blues guitar, and like kind of went down a rabbit hole like that, and like kind of like. Which also opened up like a really big door for me, and something that still informs the way I listen to music and consume it now is like if you have an artist that you like, and you kind of like just like devour like their like discography. One of the first things that I do and was kind of informed by like being like really into like so you're really into Jimi Hendrix, so one of the first things that you come to realize like being into Jimi Hendrix is like the extent to which like his guitar playing is informed by like other players, like so then you go down the rabbit hole and like you become aware of like Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, like Delta blues players, R&B guitar players like Marcel Dupree and like Bobby Womack. So I mean it's like it's turtles on turtles all the way down, right?
Yeah.
And so in any genre of music, one of the things, my biggest takeaway, what's allowed me to like really try to expand my horizons as much as possible is like as soon as you like an artist and you like listen to a good portion of their discography or whatever, first thing I do is try to find out who they're influenced by or like what they're taking from, and then I listen to those artists, and a lot of the time you find common threads, you find something new, and it's a way that you can continuously be discovering new things, by oftentimes looking backward, like, which is like one of the biggest, I guess, like in kind of a modern and like a digital age, and one of the coolest things about hip hop, but one of the things that's also like I think maybe I wouldn't say necessarily detrimental, but something that I think a lot of people, the way that they look at it, or like modern pop music, is like there's an obsession with like what's new, like what's like okay, this is fresh, this is relevant to our lives in the moment, and that's fine. But I do think that a lot of people, and like specifically like a lot of like younger people, like they get so consumed by like something that is relevant in the present, which is like, especially now with like you have like digital platforms, like you have like the entire history of like recorded music in the palm of your hand, right? And so like one of the biggest things for me, and what's that allowed me to do, is just to have like you have like an unlimited catalog to like go and like look back and like this like vast library of like recorded music and sound in like every possible genre, every possible, even like something that transcends culture, language, and genre.
And it's easy to find out who influenced the artist that you're interested in because of all the resources out there.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's literally as simple as looking at like a Wikipedia page, and then like you have like, okay, I like so and so, they're influenced by these 5 artists, and so like you just have 5 new people that you can listen to when you're like just like staring at your search bar.
I fucking relate, dude. I went down that same rabbit hole with Kid Cudi. You figured out, one major influence was Kurt Cobain, and I did research on him and looked up his lyricism and just all that different shit. So it's interesting that you kind of said that you go down different rabbit holes for
sure.
your favorite artists, because I find myself doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's like it's kind of inevitability with like the fact that everything is so digitized, and that you, like I said, kind of go back to this vast library of like literally like Apple Music and Spotify. Anything that you can possibly think of, like with very few exceptions, is available at your fingertips at the moment, like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a downside to that too, because of the fact that you have like, so you have so many choices that like it's so like you're looking at like, for example, like if you I'm sure you've been in the situation where you've been in the car and you're like, oh, I want to. If you're thinking of maybe an artist, a song, a sound, a vibe that you want to capture, and then you're like, oh man, like you just look at your search bar on Spotify and you're like, oh man, like nothing's coming to me right now, like in that specific. I don't know if you experienced.
There's been like a whole year. There's been about a year that Matt Fried and I heard this song at a restaurant we were at, and both loved the song but couldn't think of what it was called, and like we only know like 2 lyrics, and we tried looking it up. It's like, fuck, I want to listen to that song, but I can't figure it out.
It happens to me all the time. It to the point to like where now, like what I'll try to do is like, and oftentimes failing, is like I'll try to hum it like into like a Shazam, or like, you know, Snapchat even.
But it doesn't work often.
It very seldom works. But there was one that was like one that comes to mind. There's a song from The Last Dance.
Okay.
It's
a documentary?
Yes.
Okay.
The Michael Jordan documentary.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So yeah, there's an acoustic song, and it's done like on like a Spanish guitar. It's called Teardrop, right? And I'm not gonna sing it for you, but
damn it.
And there's just something about it, like the whole like the vibe, and like it kind of has like a drone feel to it, and it just like I heard it immediately. And I was like, what is that song? Like I need to know it, right? Literally took me probably 6 months to figure it out, right? And like this is like I remember like maybe 2 or 3 lyrics. In my head, like I was just obsessed with it. I had no idea who the artist was, and I was trying to figure it out. Well, I actually found out that it was a cover of like a Massive Attack song. It was like I was already aware of, and I didn't even know that it was the same song. Mm-hmm. It was so recognizable, and just had like this really weird like aha moment. And I initially thought that there was I knew that there was some sort of connection to like the 2 songs, but I thought like one was a cover of the other, but it turned out to be the like opposite way. And it was just like I don't know. But it literally took me 6 months to figure out that song and that artist on that one documentary, and I could have literally just probably like went to the credits on like Netflix and figured it out in like 30 seconds. And
is that what's listed in the credits? See, I never read credits.
There has to be,
what's in there.
Yeah, you have to credit the artist on like the recording and stuff like that. But like it literally like after I listened to it for a few times and like got it, Teardrop by Jose Gonzalez, for anybody who's curious.
That was a real good radio voice right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that for the rest of the podcast. Like
Smooth talk with Kevin style.
Yeah, but I mean, you have like those instances all the time, right? Where you hear something and it's like, oh my god, like that earworm, and it's like in your head, and you're like,
oh yeah,
you have that obsessive, like, you know, kind of compulsion to figure out what that is, and so you can listen to it, you can know it, you can like, you know, when you have something stuck in your head, I mean, the only thing that really like, you know, it's the itch you can't scratch until you can actually figure out what that song is, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, it just...
and it's bothersome.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, if Fried's listening, we still... I'll fucking... Maybe I'll hum it for you, and this I might have to edit out, but it's like, I feel like... Do you know the band Yellow Days?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's them, because I looked up their whole discography, saw my song, and it's not. But it's like an artist like them, or a band like them.
Yeah, we saw Momo Pop, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, and they're great. But so the song, we were literally like getting a drink at this restaurant in Clarkston, and like it came on, and I probably won't do a very good job of it. Yeah. It's like, I'm not gonna do it. Fuck it, I'm not doing it. But
it's your show, man. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, but I don't feel like editing it out later. I'm lazy. But either way, it's a real pain in the ass because I fucking know the song, and the thing is, I feel like it's in like NHL or like FIFA or something because I know the song well, but not well enough to know the name or the artist or even more than like one line to look up the lyrics. But regardless, you said something previously about like creating music now. It's more so just to enjoy the experience of, you know, playing the music and that experience, the interchange with, or the exchange with yourself and whoever's listening, or the people creating it together with you.
Yeah. And
that's something like I appreciate because I mean, your band's much more of a band than, you know, my band, if you want to call it that. It's because, you know, when we first started doing that, at least for me, I was like,
are you guys still making music?
We haven't. I'd love to. I don't know. Regardless, though, like in my mind, it's like, oh, we gotta put shit out.
Right.
I know Jake wanted to put shit out. Freed was like, no, we just gotta create. And Freed's like the art, like the more, like, he's more of an artist than the other two of us. And he's like, we just gotta create. We can scrap it, blah blah blah. And I always thought it was crazy. I'm like, dude, you created a song like 80% of the way. Let's finish it. He's like, I don't like it anymore. Yeah. But like, it was fun playing that.
Right.
But then it becomes like a burden if you can't finish it. So I like that you're just kind of creating.
Yeah.
And
you know, I mean, that's like kind of a really difficult thing, and like you have to like there's I don't know, it's kind of like a turn of phrase, and that you know people who like write or create anything, it's like you have to kill your darlings, right? So like you know what I mean, like if you you know what I mean, you make something, and you know maybe you know you have to, especially if you know especially now like you know which is like I feel like making music and trying to like put yourself out there and like to really hustle and do it. It's kind of like a young person's kind of game, right? And in a lot of ways, right? So I mean, like, so I guess my point is like you have to like not only like, and especially like in a digital you know space in which you're putting music out there and people are going to be listening to it in that same way. First and foremost.
All right, sorry about that. I'm a fucking idiot, and
we're back from commercial break.
Yeah, I mean, we could say that, but I don't have ads. I left my fucking charger. I didn't plug my laptop in, so it died. So that's on me. Shitty fucking host. But regardless, where we were going and what I was pulling from that is it is fucking hard to... You said you have to kill your darlings.
Right.
And I would agree with that. And I think it was very difficult for me because...
I'm turn that one off.
Just real quick. Fucking everything shut off. But, so it's just the on button.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're good. Because I know when we were making it, like, it wasn't so much I wanted to, it was a hustle and we needed to get noticed or whatever.
Yeah.
When we were making music, it was easy for Free to scrap it because he's creative and he can create like, more stuff.
Yeah.
I was writing a lot of the songs and it was coming from a very emotional spot. So, like, that's another thing, too, is he's like, all right, let's scrap it. I'm like, I just fucking spilled my guts into this lyrics. And he's like, yeah, it's personal.
Right.
It's not going to resonate with that many people. It's not, I mean, you separate your emotion and your attachment to this part and we'll create something better because you got out what you needed to say and I think it's good for you then, but now let's create something better.
And that's a great approach to it. Is like, if you have the mentality of, okay, like, all right, I'm happy with this, while simultaneously not being satisfied and using that to really push yourself forward and to, you know, create something that you think is better, or like, you know, to learn a little bit more about like the craft, if you will, right? Not just like songs, song structure, you know, maybe it's like something like a lyric, or you are more confident, you know, in that aspect of it. You know, I think that's a really healthy way of approaching it, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. And I think, honestly, a lot of that begs itself to being a creative person. I think, like, you know, in our experience, that's what I can talk to. Freed is more creative than I am. He's okay with creating something and it doesn't have to see it all the way through and dropping it and then going on to the next thing.
Or would you say that maybe he just like has a little bit more like musicality and maybe the craft is?
Well, he definitely does.
Yeah.
But like I know for like but not just music. For me, it's like,
separate. I'm asking, do you separate like? Cause for me, and again, like from what you're thinking of. 'Cause, I mean, obviously you were like. Obviously a big part of the creative process, and you're talking specifically about how you were, the extent to which you're putting yourself into it. So, I mean, to me, that's something that, like, this seems like, I would separate the creativity from the craft almost. You know what I mean? They're one and the same in some aspects, but also just what you can do, like, you know, once you have a grasp of the craft, then you can then work within the confines and the rules per se, and you have the puzzle pieces in front of you, and you can put them together as you'd like, right?
Yeah.
So I think... And I'm only saying this and interjecting because I feel like I was in maybe a similar spot to you at one point in time, you know, to where when you put so much effort into something, and it is such a Herculean effort to get to a certain point, and then for whatever reason it not to work, you know, it can be a very daunting idea. Like, okay, this then has we can't use this, right? what I think is a point you have to get to, and really in any creative discipline, is the point to where you have enough craft to fall back onto where the starting point, so you're in your efficiency. So for example, let me backtrack here, and I digress, but it's like your facility to create something and your starting point, you're maybe a little bit further ahead and you have an idea and you can better articulate things and put them together and have an idea of the way things work generally, like within like music and songwriting, for example. So you can fall back on that and learn from your mistakes and then be constantly building as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The reason I said creativity, and I hear what you're saying, I agree, but the reason I said creativity is because, like, for me, I was kind of like, not only was I emotionally invested into what we were creating because it was very personal to me, but I also was kind of afraid that I wasn't creative enough to make something else. Yeah. That's what I think he was like, dude, we got beats on beats on beats, let's keep going. And I was like, I don't have anything else. Yeah. So maybe it's craft, but again, maybe it's, for me, a little bit of it was, I think he's just more creative. He can just, off the cuff produce other shit.
And not to say, and I guess, like, they're not mutually exclusive, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, I just think I think they feed off things. And I really, and somebody, oh man, I'm all over the place here, but I think that there is an element of, like, the creative process that is, like, it's a process, right?
Fuck it is.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, when in doubt, you fall back on the process, and the more times that you go through the process, the better you get at, generating something that you're happy with at the end of it, right? You know? And that's like a big thing and something that I've, I really don't do, I'm also kind of coming out of a job where I was working like 80, 85 hours a week, so I haven't had a lot of time in the last year or so to, like, really focus on any of the things. But what you find, in my experience, is the more you do it, and also you team up with people so for me, it's like, I've always had the luxury, really, of having people who are better than me that I've played with, that not only have I been able to learn from, but also, like, just to have to try to keep up in those settings, right? Whether that's, like, writing, whether that's playing, jamming. And it just makes you better, keeps you on your toes, and and it gives you the impetus and kind of a roadmap and an understanding of, like, how you get better.
It also, at least for me, gave me an appreciation of how much fucking talent and work goes into being good at something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, man, it's wild, and it's like, you think of, like, something like music, right? And, like, even, like, you can go so deep into, like, the 12-tone equal temperament scale, and, like, understanding the way that, like, different notes are, like, put together, and, like, in scales and in chord progressions, and, like, you start understanding that, and then how that translates to individual instruments, for example, like, like a guitar or bass versus, like, the piano, and layout, and understanding that, and then, just, like, it truly is infinite, the level, the extent, and how far you can go with it, right? And, like, your level of understanding, there is always something more to learn, right? So somebody who can be, like, an absolute master, there are ways in which, like, they can always be progressing and always be learning more about that, and, like, in anything, but, like, to me, and music, is there something that's, like, it's simultaneously, like, it's if you don't understand, like, for example, like, you could play, you can listen to somebody, like, a beautiful harmony, right? And pretty much any person off the street, it'll make the hairs on the neck stand up. But, like, and it's kind of like a magical spiritual experience, but yet that is, like, deeply rooted in, like, physics and the way that certain wavelengths, coincide with one another, and, like, understanding the way that they correspond, like, on a scale, right? So it's like, it's this crazy dichotomy to me always of, like, this, something that's ephemeral, it's spiritual, almost magic per se, with also being deeply rooted in, like, physics, and science and math.
Yeah, it's super fucking neat. Yeah, there's a lot of science behind, like, sound and percussion. Yeah, and, like, again,
rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is like musicians get really good at targeting those things that evoke emotion.
Right.
And again, shameless plug for Kid Cudi. I watched a video on humming.
Yeah.
He's like notorious for humming.
Yeah.
And
the drone. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it can be very comforting and vulnerable too. So people really respond to that. That's why his following, although it's not huge, is like cult following almost. Right. But I won't force Kid Cudi on too many other people.
Yeah. Well, even just like the humming thing, I mean, and to bring it back to like the understanding of like the way, like the physics and the sonics of like what music are rooted in, right? So we have like the 12-tone equal temperament scale, so you can have what's called modulation, so the ability to like change different keys, right? But technically, you can be in one key center, and there are more notes in the scale, technically, that you can draw upon that are still like harmonic with your key center, right? As opposed to like, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in that key.
So is that like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the major scale.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So
a little bit. It's not music.
Yeah, there you go.
Classic.
Julie Andrews.
Classic movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's a great reference point. But for say, especially with the human voice, and me and a good friend of mine, always have this debate of like, my personal opinion is like a great singer, is like there is no greater like instrument than the human voice. And my reasoning for that is because you have the ability with the voice. There are so many microtones, so like the notes in between notes that are still harmonic and still, add to the harmonic richness of, like I say, for example, if you're sending a pentatonic riff and you are like accenting it with different microtones, right? The only really way to do that is with a voice. You can do a little bit on a guitar, like in terms of like little bending notes with different strings like that, and even like the ability like on like changing like slightly changing pitch or whatever on like a keyboard, but and just like for example, right? So the scales, right, and like starting with like the most rudimentary like a pentatonic scale, that is based on the harmonic series, right? So if you think of something pentatonic, the 5 notes, right, or like the like whatever, if you think of like 8 notes on like the major scale, I think there's something like 73 tones on the harmonic series, which is what all scales are based off of, right?
Okay.
So the actual natural occurring tones that are harmonic to each other. Does that make sense? You follow?
I'm a little bit lost.
It's getting a little bit. You get a little lost in the sauce here. I'm sorry about that, but it's like it just gives you the idea, the scope, and the depth in which you can study music on like looking at it from multiple angles and like how deep it really goes and like the understanding of it, based in physics, the application and the way that like people have molded, or not molded, but applied, the 12-tone scale, the way that like different cultures, the way that their scale is, or the way that they've organized like pentatonic and the pentatonic note, like notes that are pentatonic, I should say, in the harmonic series. So it's like, it's truly infinite, and that's just the way that it's just kind of a very brief example of that, right? So
yeah, I think the science that goes into music, whether it be vocal, percussion, the different chords, which I cannot relay back to you, but it is truly incredible. So if you ever want to study that, I recommend it. But question for you, before we maybe pivot to a different topic, if you could decide, like if you had to pick one, do you get more joy from listening to other people's music, professional or not, or from creating your own playing music, and why?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it just kind of like it. I would say that like at this juncture in time, I would say playing with like my friends, right? And whether that's playing like maybe it's like we're doing a cover song, we're like doing a jam, we're improvising, we're playing an original song, and you have moments where like you have like I experience, and I think that generally I have an idea of like when other people in the band are experiencing something similar, of like what like you might refer to as like epistasis, right? Or like I'm not going to pronounce that right, but like an ecstatic experience, right? To where you feel like that it's something that feels transcendent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something that's really hard to define. It's really hard to articulate in like language. It's an emotional thing. It's maybe a spiritual thing.
Okay.
But when it's like it's really good, everybody's playing really well. Every person knows they're playing well. Know everybody else is playing well, and very aware and present in that like moment, however fleeting it may be. That's like kind of like the drug at this point. That's really like what personally I'm after.
Okay.
It's like it's the transcendent, and you can. I have experienced that listening to other people's music, especially in live settings.
Yeah.
That's I think the draw of live music is to.
I would agree.
Have that experience, you know, and I mean, and I think that my mind goes immediately to that place is because like I probably haven't been to a show in a year and a half, you know what I mean? Like where normally that is something that is like a constant in my life and yours as well,
yeah,
right?
Don't fucking remind me.
So yeah, and so now, you know, in the COVID world, when I have a chance to be like together and with my friends and playing music, and you know, maybe that one moment of transcendence happens, you know, for 5 minutes for a certain song, or maybe even less than that. You know what I mean? Like that. When I look back on, maybe I'm driving home from the session we just had, like my mind will immediately go to that, and it will something that I'll replay in my mind over and over again for however long, maybe until we do it like again. You know, so that is like, that's the addiction. That's really like something. That's really what you're chasing.
Okay, yeah, I think
it's a high, you know. It really is. Like it's and then to do that, like, and then eventually you can do that in front of a live audience, right? You know what I mean? Regardless if there's 15 people there, if you get to that point, they feel it, relate it, like, you know, that energy back to you, like, you know, that's everything.
Yeah, I realized that you did that because I always said we gotta do fucking one show. I mean, never did it.
You still can, man. Like,
yeah.
People would.
We'll see.
You know, show up, right?
I mean, yeah, maybe. But, yeah, that's cool, and I think that's fair. Because I know the few times we've had a good jam sesh. Yeah. It is, like, it hits different.
It does. It really does, man. But especially because, like, you guys are all music lovers, and, like, you like live music. You know, it's like when you can do it yourself to, you know, and just, like, it's thrilling. Like,
yeah, no matter how elementary it sounds, you're still just like,
yeah. But that's the thing too, man. Like, and that's like the cool thing about it is like it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? If it's like it can be, you know, 3 chords, right? You know, a guitar, a bass, and a drum kit. You can be throwing like 3 notes, right? But if it's like you're together, you're doing it, and it's loud, you know what I mean? Like it, you feel it. You know?
Yeah. You need
to your core.
Oh, fucking! I know. You need to hang out with Freed because, I mean, that's exactly what he says. When me, Jake, and Freed hang out, we're like, all right. Me and Jake are like, all right, we're gonna get a song recorded. Freed's like, we're just gonna fucking play music. Yeah. And then we'll leave and we'll have a good time, but we'll have nothing to show for it. And Jake and I are like, fucking goddamn it. And Freed's like, yo, I had a blast. It's like, God, I wish I could be as like just carefree and just in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I mean, obviously, I've had some arguments with people, like, you know what I mean, over, you know, being in that setting, especially when you put pressure on yourself for no reason whatsoever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a me problem, not...
No, but it also, but not to say that you're wrong, you know what I mean, to try to, like, especially if you go there with, like, an objective and you don't achieve your objective, like, that, there's not saying there's anything wrong with, you know, feeling frustration there, but it is, like, you know, I don't know. Then you're going to like different group dynamics, and that's also a challenge in like the band setting too, especially when you're trying to make music. So
yeah, but okay. So there's a lot of music talk. I know the main topic I had on full, which could be probably like a 5-hour discussion if we wanted it to be, was death.
Yeah.
So
it's something I've been thinking about a lot.
Am I shy? What
you want? Yeah. Well, no, not at all. I mean, it's just.
So yeah,
bring
us into that topic.
So okay, and I wouldn't necessarily say death per se. I mean, I would say maybe mortality.
Okay.
Might be a better way to phrase that and to make a transition. You know, I mean, and specifically too, you know, I mean, you know, a elderly member of my family who I'm not particularly close with, you know, is, you know, essentially at the end of their life, right? And everything that kind of goes into that, and seeing that person in that physical state, right? And somebody, and to go, you know, see the physical changes in, you know, their face, facial structure, the way they move, their general countenance. You know, you're looking into somebody's eyes who's dying. You know what I mean? It's like, especially at this point in my life, personally, where, I mean, I guess I'm still young in a relative sense, but approaching 30, you know, I'm like, who the older people in my life, you know, whether it be grandparents, who I'm, you know, I kind of recognize I'm so lucky to have, who are, you know, in their 80s, parents who are getting older. It's like, I see that, and I see them, and I see the changes in them, and not only physically, but also in personality, general demeanor, speaking patterns, and just like overall energy. And I can't help but just to ponder my own mortality and the finite nature of life. And I don't know necessarily if other people think that way. Maybe not. Maybe that's like kind of getting a little bit ahead of oneself. But I don't necessarily think that's an unhealthy thing either.
No.
Like, for example, the realization that, and again, this is just me, like, I personally think that you have one life to live, you know, and there's a great quote that I would reference back to, saying specifically, like, you know, generally people have 2 lives, and the second one starts when you realize that you only have one.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so maybe this is something of like a catharsis for myself, and to, I guess, like, change my general, I guess, like, day-to-day approach to life, if that can be said, with in mind that, like, hey, one day that you're going to be in that very same spot, right? And I can't imagine what's going through this, like, you know, this person's head, and what they're feeling, what they're going through, basically knowing and being aware, and everybody else being aware around you that, like, you're at the very end, right? It's a heavy thing to talk about, but it's also, I think it's healthy. I think it's easy to get caught up in things that are maybe trivial,
Well, I think
it's
it's
not entirely relevant, and, you know, if you have that reference point, and, like, you know, you make decisions based on, like, I don't know, like, things that are experienced, I dare say happiness, you know, I don't know. I think it can be very informative. You know?
I would agree. I also think it's something that everybody can relate to because everybody dies.
Yeah.
But it is. I think it's also one of those topics that you know, we all know is there, but we're not going to talk about it until somebody dies.
Yeah.
But I know for myself, like, you know, I would imagine everybody's probably thought about, like, oh, what happens when I die, or if I die, or what's that going to look like, or when my parents die, and it is fucking really uncomfortable. At least for me, like,
it's total abstraction. As a conscious being, you know what I mean? The one thing that you can't possibly imagine or have zero relation to, you know, is death. Like, nobody comes, and regardless of what fucking bullshit is on YouTube of people who were dead and came back to life.
What's that? What's that movie that's fucking?
I don't know, man. Like,
when you get clear.
Yeah. Oh, like,
there's a movie where somebody he died for 10 minutes and got brought back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not to cut off your train of thought.
That sounds interesting.
That sounds fucking stupid.
No, yeah, but I mean, like, it's literally, like, impossible for you as, like, a conscious person, you know, to, like, fully grasp and understand what it means to, like, be not conscious, you know what I mean? To lose that, and to be, you know, like, that. We just don't know. You don't know, and you have to, like, you know, in some ways, or not, I guess, not only come to terms with dying, but also, I think more importantly, like, have to come to grips and like, with your life. And I think at that moment in time, like, you know what I mean? Like if you do it right, or not necessarily do it right, because there's obviously no right way to do life. That's a stupid thing to say. But like if you live a fulfilling life and, like I think it could be something that could come as relief, and if you, once your physical body, your physical form is worn down to the point that, death is the next logical thing, and you go so willingly and in peace, right? But, there's probably a lot of people, probably the majority of people who get to that stage who, probably have to live with deep-seated regret, over a lot of things. Like you probably can't help but to think and relive certain portions of your existence and the finite nature of it. It kind of becomes inevitable, and like you probably, you made decisions without basically being in mind that you're going to go to that point, right? And I mean, obviously it's not something that you want to dwell on, or, like you can have an unhealthy obsession with it, but just being realized, like it helps you maybe be in the present more. You know what I mean? Like when you're with your friends or, with somebody that, like a family member that you love or something along those lines, and to really appreciate the moments that you have with them, because it will all come to an end.
Yeah,
inevitably.
I mean you can't. It's the
human,
one thing.
Yeah, the human condition like has a 100% fatality rate.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I agree. When I start thinking about that, it gets me a little bit worried. Just because I don't want to have a life full of regret or like, fuck, I didn't feel like I really had any purpose. With that being said, though, something I noticed personally, and maybe this is me being judgmental, but something I noticed personally is lots of times you'll see, and maybe it's more so just on social media, you'll see people say, like, I only have one life, so fucking, like, people just be very selfish and not, like, really give two shits about anybody else. And my personal belief is that's not right either.
Yeah,
and again,
it's almost like the antithesis of like what, to me, it's like it makes me focus more on the people I love and want to be more selfless and like give myself.
Okay.
Like and that's just like, I mean like go back. I think it was like a really it sounds glib, but it's like Keanu Reeves. Like maybe like Stephen Colbert asked Keanu Reeves, like, oh, what do you think happens when we die? And it's like, oh, the people who love us like miss us very dearly, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, all you can really want and hope for, is to have made an impression on somebody who's going to outlive you. It's like, well, when they think of you, what do? They,
give a shit.
They just want them to smile and have fond memories of you, and you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you, I don't know, like I think of like grandparents who, have been there for me throughout my life, and like I'll always have fond memories, and I'll like, maybe to a certain extent, their essence, they live on through me. I don't know, like.
No, I agree completely. That's what I hate is when people spin what you were saying of you only have one life, and been like, all right, well, it's about me then, and I'm gonna be selfish. And you know what? If you want to live your life that way, fine.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, and I hope somebody who's listening has that belief and can challenge me on this. But my belief is that that's selfish, and I mean, like you said, when you pass on,
it's vapid.
But yeah, when you pass on, let's say you live a selfish life, who's gonna miss you? You were a fucking asshole to everybody because you were so focused on yourself. You probably burned a lot of bridges.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you wouldn't be here to know that. What is my belief?
No, for sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like
that just gets me pissed off.
You should, like, if anything, I think it just like makes you appreciate life and like the people that you are connected with who are also going through that experience. Like they are experiencing life, themselves, but are also part of you have a shared experience, you know what I mean? And so, like, why not do everything in your power with the people that you love or you're connected to like, I don't know, whatever you can do to relieve their burden, that they're, whatever burden that may be, just the general burden of life, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You also said you want, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you want to leave a good impression on people, right?
Yeah, 100%. And not necessarily like for them to like. I could see where that could be like construed of like as be like, oh, like maybe like overly self-aware, or like, you know what I mean, you are focused on your like self-image too much, but to genuinely like to be selfless and to genuinely like, if you can help somebody, or like you can just be kind, you know, like kindness is like a big part of that, I think, and to be I don't know, just a light to somebody, you know?
Yeah, and I would say I think
Anybody.
it's like you can kind of, for me, I break it down like two things. If it's somebody I don't know so well, I'll be kind because I just want to be kind, and like I don't really need them to like love me for it, right? It's just, you know, being kind. But for me, like my like close relationships, my friends, my family, obviously I want to be kind and you know do something selflessly for them. But at the same regards, those are the people I seek love from. So at the same time, although it's selfless, it's also partially selfish because I crave the love from my loved ones. So like I need that.
Well, there's also like it's like an enlightened self-interest. You know what I mean? Almost like there's something along those lines.
Help yourself by helping others.
Yeah, 100%, and that's part of it too. You know what I mean? But like it's just, and again, it's really, you know, when you talk about it in such general terms, like obviously they're in different contexts and things like that, there are complications. But you know, just like the idea of like that. All we are just like, you know, just evolved organisms on a little blue dot in the vast nothingness. Not to get morbid, but it's just like, I don't know, it's like, you know, appreciate life and the miracle of what it is, and like, you know, I think that can be very informative, and you know, just something to come to terms with, yeah, but also, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in that too, and if you can, you know, find peace in it, right? And understanding, you know, and like see yourself and life and humanity like in this kind of grand, and what I see it as is a general this weird and kind of absurd saga of just like life on Earth, you know, and like, you know, we're all evolved from single cell organisms in my mind, and you know, like.
See, that's what I believe too, and I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's. Even though it's been a long fucking journey, at one point we were, you know, this, and now we're people that have complex interactions and feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think that's so incredible. But I think, you know, all of that, death and life, to me, what that, and this is going to sound fucking cliche, but lots of cliches are true, it really drives home the importance of, you know, making sure the people that you care about know that you care about them. Because,
for sure.
Just like I was saying, I want to feel loved by my loved ones. It's just as important for me to show them that I love them as well. So I don't know why I needed to say that, but
no,
it's just kind of a way to kind of summarize what we were saying.
No, for sure, but like I mean, that's like, you know, like I think a lot of, you know, like if you think of like human beings as like biological organisms, you know, I think that general, I mean, it's hard to like look back at like human history and like even going back to that sense and like, you know, without recognizing, you know, just like the general human bonds, you know, that you like the really strong emotional ties that you have for your family members or like your closest of kin, you know, like that I think is like the kind of the basis and the bedrock of like the success and like the fact that like human beings occupy every single like inch of this planet, you know, for like, you know, oftentimes for the worst, you know, being overly successful, you know what I mean? But like, you know, all of like human evolution and, you know, like as like complex beings, I think everything is made possible by like the ability to forge like those social bonds that are forged. You know? And that's everything.
That's like the purpose.
Of you know, and obviously like in language plays like language and like by extension technology, you know.
Is it body extension technology like body language?
No, well, I mean, I see like language as something that is like, you know, is like an evolutionary, is like evolutionarily entangled like with those like really strong connections and the ability to like, you know, relay complex emotions, like instruction, whatever it may be, through the use of language, right? You know, and like and to do so abstractly, you know, I mean, to do so outside, like to talk about a different, like a past, a present, and a future.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you can relay information that happened previously. You can have, you know, and you can talk about something that's going to happen in the now, the future, all the implications of that. And I think it's an extension of like that really close emotional bond that you have. And then I see like those same bonds, that same like kind of like that language connection. I think what like the development of technology is made possible by language to be able to like relate complex ideas, you know what I mean, to preserve those, to have oral traditions, then, you know, writing, you know, the development of agriculture, you know, and everything else that transpired because of that. Like, you know, it's, you know, you can, I mean, again, this is kind of an endless rabbit hole we're getting into, but, you know, like also very, you know, deeply interconnected as well, you know. And you can make these connections across like pretty much all disciplines, you know, and we can sit here and talk about it for hours, and you know, it's something I find endlessly fascinating.
Oh, I would agree. I think life, death, and all of what we were planning to talk about can be interweaved into one conversation that could last hours.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, and it's a crazy thing, you know, and it's like it's totally abstract, and it's so like. It's so hard for, you know, so for example, and I think that one thing that I take away, and like when I have these conversations and things like that, it's something that I really enjoy and I actively pursue, and maybe like, you know, people who may be less inclined to, you know, and it's really, and it's hard to when, especially like you know, you go into adulthood and, you know, your work, your life, everything else that goes into that, like the pressure of, you know, having to pay your bills, you know, everything else, and whatever adult life goes into, you know what I mean? I think it's really difficult to take a step back and to, you know, think about things in the greatest possible terms, but, you know, but it's also worthwhile, you know, and it gives lends perspective, you know, and can be very informative to, you know, not only things that transpire like on a personal level in your own emotions and coming to grips with whatever that may be that you're dealing with, but also, you know, things that are happening in broader culture and broader society as well. You know, if you can really trace it back to those like root elements of just like the nature of humanity, you know. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. That's we need to get you on the pod with Wes, because you guys have conflicting beliefs on the beginning of humanity.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be fun, but that's the thing, is that it'd be fun to explore that, not maliciously or aggressively, but out of curiosity and wanting to know others' perspective, like you were saying.
Yeah, for sure, like 100%, and it's something I'm open to, and you know, let's have the conversation.
We'll have to have a part 2 eventually down the line. But before we sign off, I always like to end it with a mental health tip of some sort called a TIMMBIT. So if you have a mental health tip or anything that you do to achieve good mental health or to kind of step you back from that ledge if you're having a bad day, I would love to hear about it.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Yeah, I guess I just like maybe do some push-ups or something.
If you can give a loaded answer if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey man, I'm you know, somebody who's like, you know, listening to me, you know, I definitely struggle with, you know, just like, even if it's something along the lines of just like, you know, having a hard time taking a step back from work, or, you know, you're like kind of a runaway train of like or a certain line of thought that becomes like a runaway train, you know, and it's very difficult to, you know, step away from that. And it's something that I'd say probably in like the, you know, even like the last few years of myself, it just like, and it's not always successful, but the ability to, you know, be conscious of the fact that maybe you're feeling anxious about something, the fact that you can process or have an understanding of the way that your mind processes things or the way that it generally works, if you can come to a certain self-realization and be able to like have something as simple as like taking deep breaths, controlling your own heart rate, centering yourself, I think that goes a long way. If there's somebody, you know, and I think a lot of people experience that, but, you know, that's just my one way of dealing with I guess general anxiety and the overwhelming nature of life in general, I guess.
No, I think that makes sense, and I like it. It sounds a lot like being mindful of the situation you're in and then accepting it and just moving past it.
Yeah, generally, or just for example, one thing I struggle with personally is insomnia. I have not really being able to turn my mind off, for lack of a better term, but just to be to even rationalize with oneself, to be okay, by allowing your mental state to inhibit sleep, you know what I mean, you're only going to compound your own distress, right? So to be able to think to yourself, to take deep breaths, to center yourself, and to be cognizant of the fact that okay, staying up, laying in bed, pondering and considering these things is only going to make the situation worse. And the logical thing to do is try to get into the state of mind by whether it be breathing, using maybe different meditation technique to back yourself down from that ledge, to borrow your language, the way that you put that,
level yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that to me has been a game changer. And a lot of it just was breathing.
Breathing's huge, and I watched a TED Talk on breathing. It's pretty interesting. It's a fucking science, but I appreciate the tip, and I think a lot of people can probably use that themselves if they don't already. Kevin, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man.
It's been very fun. I'm excited to eat some fucking pizza now.
Yeah, big time.
If you're listening to this, you'd like to come on the podcast as a guest, please reach out to my Instagram at TIMMPodcast, or send me an email, or just send me a text. Just somehow get a hold of me. I'd love to have you on, stranger or not, old or young, anywhere in the middle. Also, would really appreciate a like and review on Apple Podcasts or anything where you get your shit from. And then one shameless plug: go check out the Crampton Bros. That's right. Is it Bros or Brothers? It's Bros, right?
Brothers, yeah. No, it's
Brothers. Oh, okay. I like the album where you guys are with the picture of you guys laying down on the cement.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I appreciate that.
And the Moose Lounge. Next time you guys have live music, I'm there, and you should too. So go check them out. Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all that jazz. Until next week. Thanks, guys.